I am thanking you so much for staying tuned and, being a part of our conversation. And this morning we are chatting with Assemblywoman Natisha Charles-Pantin, good morning, who is also the Secretary for Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development. Now, there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot that's happening at the divisional level, at the district level, and we are seeing that preparations are happening for the next T.H.A election as we near the end of this first term in office. And, as we start off the discussion this morning, how has it been for you? Do you feel like that time has flown by and you can't believe that you're heading into election again? Or it just started to feel like, okay, even without looking at the clock, there's just this internal feeling that something is coming?
How do I feel? All right. So good morning, everyone. Good morning to Bagatelle Bacalet. I can't explain my feeling thoroughly, but I'll tell you this. Because my personality is always one that I'm prepared. I'm not nervous about anything. I have been consistent, even in times of little, right? Which is a very long time, 3.5 years of little. I have been consistent, I've been visible. So I just think that is just a natural part of life, being assessed frequently. I mean, even in school, you get assessments, So I just think the 4-year term is approaching us and we'll be assessed according to the resources that we got and how much we were able to be part of the community. And that's it. Yeah.
They say heavy is the head that wears the crown. Yeah. And in this 2026 budget presentation, we've heard a lot about using agriculture to anchor the economy and use it as a tool for economic growth.
Yes.
There are some goals in terms of increasing GDP and increasing local productivity. What are some of the key strategies that you are implementing to drive this type of economic growth, and specifically seeing that we're coming to the end of a term? How much can one do to have such a realistic impact before the next election?
Well, given that agriculture was almost at zero in terms of every area, and given that when I got in there, we had no money, we were in the minus in terms of development, we had to rework how we would approach, reorganize, revitalize. So we basically had to, start from scratch. And starting from scratch is never easy, because if you have aging infrastructure, you have outdated old equipment that you had to get rid of in some instances. So you're really starting from scratch and trying to set that platform so that we can consider growth to begin with. Yeah. It would have been easier if I inherited something, that was already blossoming, so you could measure growth. But now you're really at a start. And let me explain. So, for example, the small ruminant sector, that never got any attention, as a matter of fact. So we had to look at the sector in terms of how farmers, farmers would just send down the animals to Trinidad. You'll hear the sheep van blowing outside the house. And so we had to try to stop that and try to keep our prime breeding stock on the island, right? And then encourage farmers to sell their stock, to Tobagonians, right? So that we could have access on the island first. Yeah. We had to train them on how to do specialty cuts in some of the livestock. Yeah. Because, when you're talking about standards, yeah, even for yourself, right? So we had to train them on master butcher training and, all different types of things. So that in itself was a start. And the stations in agriculture, they are demonstration stations. So the division is not designed to compete. A lot of people think that the Division of Food Security should be planting the food. But if we do that, then the farmers will be competing with farmers, and then you have another issue. So the stations are designed to train farmers, to train young people in getting involved in farming. And that is why we had to start from scratch with everything. So you had to build up livestock pens. As a matter of fact, I made a reference yesterday that we had significant investment in livestock pens in Louisdor, in Hope, in Bleming, right? And we still have Runnymede breeding unit to refurbish. So it's like dusting out everything and really getting back into agriculture. So we provide stock so that people can have access. And I gave them a mandate to increase the stock, 5,000 lambs, 5,000, goat kids. So setting the policy in itself, that helps so that the technical officers would understand the direction that we're heading towards, yeah? But I think that we would have done well. Transforming some of the fish facilities, again, in deplorable state, right? We would have fixed Roxborough Fish Facility, Belgarden, not saying Belgarden, Barbados Bay, Fish Facility, Culloden Fish Facility, Buku Fish Facility. So we're really trying, right? And then you can't just consider the facility alone because you have to think along the value chain. So that is why, yes, I don't know if everyone following the social media page, the Division of Food Security, persons were asking, where is this? They saw a lot of produce and people packing them neatly and, and when you think about it, you don't just plant and then just sell, you need to know post-harvest techniques, when to harvest your crop so that, you don't harvest leafy vegetables during high sunshine because after you harvest it, they're going to wilt. So you need to understand post-harvest techniques, and that is why the packing house is there, right? And you have the technical advice there. So you know when to harvest, when to take to the packing house, you know how to treat the produce and package it. So, I mean, it's a lot to do in agriculture, but we're setting the platform for growth. Yeah?
Excellent. And how, I mean, you indicated that when you came in, there was very little success to inherit. How important is creating a structure that has a foundation for continuity for you? For instance, let's say by any stroke of fate that you may not be in the Division of Food Security next time around. How are you laying a foundation that ensures that whoever comes after you can take the baton and continue to do the work?
Well, I wouldn't be responsible for assessing who would be able to take up the baton, but I can tell you that if you don't understand the sector, you could be easily misled and make the wrong decisions. And that happens, right? Every individual will have their vision, of course. What any person would inherit, they would inherit functioning facilities. You will inherit new facilities like the Palatavere Fish Facility, right? As opposed to me getting things that I could not use to do anything. Yeah, so I had to refurbish and construct, and so once you have someone with that share the vision and they understand agriculture in its fullest sense, that it's a science and a business, then you should be able to run with it. But I'll tell you something. Once you set the policy and you have trained the personnel, it should be a smooth operation from there, because in nurturing the home gardening unit, you have seen where their responsibilities expanded, and it's going to be further expanded, but they signed on and they're doing an excellent job. You see them doing home servicing the 970 home gardeners that we have. You see them in all the schools, teaching people hydroponics, You see the tractor pool being engaged and sensitizing children on the different farm equipment, and you know how the different processes involved in agriculture, like banking and all different types of things with the tractors. So we're kind of familiarizing the public as to how things operate in agriculture, and that in itself is a legacy, right? Nobody will fool you. Right? I sent the home garden unit to Trinidad, to Greenage Farms and to other places, and we're teaching them the skills to transfer the knowledge. So that's it. So you have to sort of build capacity at the division level, and then knowledge transfer. You're facilitating knowledge transfer. Yeah?
But you had a launch for one of your projects under your division just last week, I believe.
Say again?
Just last week, you had one of those launches under your division for a new program that was in collaboration with TAGS as well. So tell us a bit about that project and how that can be a part of the sustainability initiative as it pertains to, long-term agricultural investment.
So what you had, I know everybody heard about the homestead program in Trinidad, and recently one of the ministers, I think it's Minister Watts, would have reported that the project failed in a lot of cases. Those farmers, young farmers, never got lands, no infrastructure, and that's what I'm saying. If you don't think along the value chain, you wouldn't understand that agriculture is more than just giving out land. Because if you give the land, they will now come back to you and say, I have no money to make the investment in terms of doing the roads, in terms of putting down the shade houses, in terms of getting the services like shade house, packing house services, post-harvest techniques, understanding the entire value chain. Then it will fail. And then we'll be at the same point where we have been for years, still waiting on farmers to produce. And I know a lot of persons would have been trained to pursue agriculture as a career path. But a lot of us, and I include myself because I also went to the Eastern Caribbean Institute of Agriculture and Forestry. And a lot of us didn't have anything to start with. So you spend a lot of years waiting to start. And that is what we're trying to get, eliminate. So we designed an agro park at Friendship. And the process, we sent out a mega farming link on the different platforms, and we have the technical officers looking at what people currently do, assessing different things, because you may have land already, you might need technical support, right? But if you don't have land, you might be renting in a space, or you might be using someone else's land. And they look at your passion, they assess your passion, how driven you are, right? And they have a whole lot of factors that they look at. And then they decide how the shade houses would be distributed. So it's not just about land, but you're getting your shade house, you're getting access to packing house services right there in the agro park. So there are different things that will be designed there so that you don't have to return to the division to now beg for an access road. Then you come and beg for a grant to put up. You understand? So it's just on, and you're never getting to produce. So that is one initiative, right? Among all the other initiatives. So different places would have different types of agro parks.
Right.
So, for example, Friendship you wouldn't be able to grow fruit-bearing crops, because you have the airport right there, and you don't want to attract birds, because you see what happened to planes when birds go in to shut down the engine. So that project would be specific to leafy vegetables, and maybe things like beetroot, things that wouldn't attract wildlife, right? Okay. So corn and herbs and spices project, you would hear Hope Farm, right? In a similar fashion, they'll be doing small ruminants, right? So different areas will have different types of projects.
And recently I had a conversation with one of the farmers, I believe his name is Mr. Kun, who
Yes.
is developing his own mega farm project. And I believe that it's in alignment with the vision of the division. And, you know, during your presentation, you would have said how important it is for Tobagonians to have that buy-in to a lot of the development projects that you are doing so that it's not solely weighted on the shoulders of the division, but
Correct.
there's a shared responsibility for development.
Correct.
And so with that, you know, are these type of, you know, is collaboration happening with these farmers to ensure that, okay, this is our agenda, but you already have resources. You already bringing in world-class equipment, you know, that can benefit us, and training facilities that we can benefit from. What type of partnerships are happening there, you know, to ensure that when we ask people to get involved in development, that we are actually providing the resources to support them when they do?
No, a lot of investment seems to be going there. So I believe that is in partnership with someone. And he would have received the tractor services. He would have received excavator services. That is what he would have gotten. And the access roads, right? Because we did 2.3 miles of access roads in that same Belmont Gibba Gully area, right? His hope is to do poultry farming. I think it's an excellent drive. It's exactly what we want to happen in that space. Whatever technical advice, he knows the relevant officers because he has been in contact with some of our senior personnel there, right? So we have been doing the best that we could for that project. I think what they're asking for, and which we already paid for. So we're just hoping that things would be advanced because we paid for water, for lines to be run in that area, in Corland, right, in different places. And of course, you know, you'll have politics involved there. So what we managed to get Corland completed. So Belmont is on the next schedule. Yeah, and we keep following up with WASA to find out when are you going to lay the pipes. Yeah,
Right.
so we are trying to give the support in there.
But with the completion of this project, because we hear him talking about training facilities and all of these things, you know, is this something that the division will be able to partner with, whether it be by offering some of its courses at his facility, and you know, having that type of institutionalized partnership where the equipment is there, you know, the facility is there, the ideas are there, but to embrace it as being a part of Tobago's development. This is somebody who, on an individual level, you know, claims to have mortgaged his property for this project because of the vision that he has, which seems to align with the vision that you have.
Right.
You know, so is it something where, you know, after it's finished, the division might, you know, because as a part of the T.H.A, you know, project, maybe have some courses done there.
Right. Well, just like the farms, his site could also be a demonstration farm, right? Children will be able to go there. You know, yeah, it could be a demonstration site. So I don't understand the full mechanics of the, you know, the background as to, you know, what he's doing there in terms of, you know, him mortgaging and his partnerships, you know, the relevant partnerships. But I know definitely that the services that the division offers, right, he also had access to it and has been accessing, right? And as I said, we are going to provide the necessary infrastructure, seeing that everything was, like we used to say a long time before, behind, you know? Yeah, to give people land and then they had to come back and beg you for the road and they had to come back and beg you for the lights, right? And which you don't necessarily always have the funding to do so at a particular time, yeah? But we have been providing these services as best as we can among other farmers as well in conjunction with Mr. Kun, yeah?
Understood.
Yes, it's a balancing act. You know, sometimes you may want to, you might send somebody by one farmer, but the farmer might want to keep them for 2 weeks. You know, you have that kind of issue. And that is why we encourage as much access to grant funding so that you too can also purchase what you need, so that you don't have to always wait on the government. And that is why we separated the commercial farmers from the home gardeners, so that we deliver the type of support that each stakeholder would want. So that is why I keep telling people that we took a note to Executive Council so that you can access grant funding under BDU now to support your farm operations. Yeah. And I think the Goodly Secretary also launched a loan program, right, that you can now access. Yeah. So you have to think about your as agriculture as a business, as an investment that you would reap the benefits in time to come, right? So that is how we're trying to encourage persons, and we're hoping that the allocation, because we have $100,000 grant, they also have access to that, right? And we're hoping that the allocation finally comes to Tobago, so that they don't necessarily the technical officers are to come up from Trinidad to do the assessment, so that everything can be done from Tobago. But aside from that, we still took a note to Executive Council so you can get the necessary support at the Division of Finance.
In the last presentation, in his midterm budget review presentation in the Parliament, the Minister for Finance, Minister Tanku, he would have, highlighted the fact that moving forward, the aim is to have a greater relationship with the Tobago House of Assembly, in that all projects being done in Tobago will require consultation with the Tobago representatives and the divisions, the relevant divisions. Do you see this as being a means where Tobagonians would be able to better benefit from those national grants and national programs? And have you seen any movement in that area as yet?
The Tobago perspective is extremely important. Now, I've worked with the division for 18 years, and maybe that's the advantage. When you actually get to work within the departments, then it becomes easy to understand the division of the division and move forward. Yeah. So understanding the Tobago perspective is extremely important. Now, we have been battling issues with wildlife like forever, and we continuously say and write and propose that, certain game species, right, we need to treat it differently in Tobago as opposed to just a general law for both islands. Yeah. And we will continue advocating in a manner that would benefit farmers. In the absence of that, we still try to tackle some of the bird pest issues. So that is why that was the reason for getting the bird squawkers, right? For pest management, because cocoa couldn't thrive in Tobago with the parrots, with the cockroaches. And that is why we implemented that. So when farmers had an issue, we could just come in and treat with it. So we didn't sit and wait on Trinidad to hear us, right? So we're going to continue pursuing that discussion with them. And of course, we already started the conversation of having meetings to address some of the burning issues under the division, right? We have had that discussion about the incentives for farmers. Usually it's a rebate program that we have. It's a national program. You spend your money and then you get a rebate. And it sort of protects the public purse, because sometimes you may give a grant for something and, something pops up and they don't use it for what it was they signed up for. So usually you pay and then you get a rebate, right? But there are some instances, as I said, because even I went to T.H.A. And then when I came out, you had to sit there and wonder, okay, what avenues? And then people would tell you, well, you don't have resources, so you had to start from scratch and build and build. But having access to the grant, and people who really want to pursue agriculture as a career path, that would help in some instances, yeah? So we're already having that discussion. You see the Tobago perspective, understanding that Tobagonian, sometimes you're really starting at zero. You come from a big family, or you come from a family that, you know, you don't have a lot, but you have a lot of knowledge and you have passion, right? What exists in this space so that I can pursue agriculture as a career path?
Excellent. Well, we're going to take a quick break right here and we'll be back right after this. So see you soon.
New morning, rise up to a brand new dawning, as to wake up and hear.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. This morning I have had the privilege of sitting and chatting in studio with Assemblyman Nathisha Charles-Pantin, who's also the Secretary for Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development. This morning we've been chatting about a number of developments in the agricultural sector, specifically pertaining to, you know, the allocation that Tobago is requesting as it pertains to using agriculture to anchor economic growth. But there's also a number of things happening at the district level in your area. Talk to us about that.
Okay. Now, before I get to the district, I want to just point out that we have been doing a lot of work at the division level, at the Tobago-wide level, that Tobagonians should boast about and feel proud of. And these are achievements that we have been, you know, that never been experiencing before, struggling to achieve. Within 3.5 years, we were able to have a breakthrough. And I just want to point out that even though you have members opposite bashing the very Tobagonians that they're hoping to get their support from, they have been doing a remarkable job and pushing forward. And it's a reflection of my personality, that you just keep going regardless of how difficult things could get. So I'm just going to point that out. Being able to export fish, everybody would have understood what T.H.A went through in order to become a viable company. And to see that T.H.A is now exporting fish to St. Vincent, and they're about to export fish to Barbados, including flying fish. They are negotiating with other countries in the region, and I think T.H.A is doing an excellent job, and I want to commend the board, I want to commend the management for doing an excellent job. They have a barrage of products. T.H.A used to sell foreign chicken, for example, cheese, everything foreign you could have find in T.H.A on T.H.A compound. And now you have a one-stop local shop at T.H.A where you can get even ice cream that I didn't know existed. I now eat Tobago cassava pone ice cream, right? And it tastes like pone. I love pone. I make pone, right? So you have waffle mix, dasheen cereal, and you have all the local meats, pork, beef, chicken, goat, lamb. You can get it at T.H.A. So I want to commend the board and management, and I was really happy to hear that very soon some of these products will be found in duty-free at Piarco Airport. So that means that you would have achieved international standards, yeah? So that it can leave the shores of Tobago, and you can now say, this is a Tobago brand, farine, right? These are things that we would have never been able to achieve. So I want to commend the companies, right? TARI, that is the Tobago Agriculture Research Institute, being able to, I used to take a boat and go down to Trinidad. I used to struggle sometimes. I'd come up, do my projects, and then tote them on the boat to go down. Right? Now you can study in Tobago and get all your certificates in Tobago, both in agriculture and agro-processing from UTT. Right? So I want to commend, right, that committee as well, that board as well. And TAGS, being able to push for the first Agritech Summit, the first And I mean, I know we have a lot of archaic operations and people hold on to the traditional type of methods of farming and fishing. But being able to try to push through, right? Because your start was good, but being able to push through so that people can come on board to understand the technologies, that in itself, you should be applauded as well, right? So I want to encourage reforestation, being able to implement user fees across the island, Little Tobago, Botanics, Corland, and very soon the Mainridge Forest Reserve, right? These are things that we would have been struggling for years to do, being afraid to take this step. So you need to commend yourselves, yeah? We can do great things, and that is what we meant by building the greatest island on the planet. Being able to become creative in a space where that requires creativity, right? Understanding the vision of the secretary, the vision of the administration, and being able to run with it, accepting new ideas, thoughts, being able to be trainable. So I want to commend you, each and every category of worker, right? At the level of the constituency of the electoral district, I try to focus mainly on things that people weren't getting all the time for decades. Bagatelle Bacolet, it's very near to the heart of Scarborough. And we had a lot of areas without lights, Celestial View, Bacolet Point, even Bacolet that people think would be already, don't need a lot of infrastructure. Bacolet Point, Inez. We had French Fort. French Fort didn't have any lights, right? Cradley, Adelphi, areas in Adelphi. These are a lot of areas. This is very close to Scarborough. And now they have lights, right? Assemblyman George would have pursued, along with myself, to get those lights at our settlements, because public utilities is under settlements. So I want to send my regards to him, assisting me to push through, right? We had a lot of infrastructural problems, right? Being able to refurbish the steps at Friends Field, right? Drainage issues. We still have roads to fix, a lot of roads to fix, yeah? So these are the things that I've been focusing on. Putting in the drains in Bacolet, putting in the drains in Mason Hall, trying to fix roads, right? We're still doing that, right? But we're able to advance and then finally get somewhere after decades. And I live within the electoral district, I'm born and grew, right? So I understand fully what it feels like not to be comfortable in my own space, right? Even in terms of employment, a lot of young people, for the first time, they experience, being able to come out to work in the private sector, in the public sector, and having the experience. I mean, to see young men who they don't even know how to operate a cutlass, a hoe, and you're seeing them getting the training, right? That in itself is a blessing, right? Because not everybody would qualify to, at a degree level.
Right.
So at every level, you're seeing people that they have the degrees and they have opportunities, right? As well as if you didn't, you weren't successful at exams, you now have opportunities where you could even come to T.H.A, right? If you want to pursue agriculture and sign up and get a certificate, which would open a slew of opportunities, right? A barrage of opportunities, yeah, for you, right? Because once you have a certificate, you can access the Youth in Agriculture grant. So we have been implementing different programs, sports. You see that we're heavy into the football, right? We have a lot of little community initiatives meeting and greeting people and getting to understand what makes them uncomfortable in their own space. Even simple garbage collection, we have issues with that. A lot of pipes burst all the time, so you could tell there's a lot of aging infrastructure. So keeping up with, all those burst pipes all around, right? And Wassa digging up all the holes around Tobago, trying to keep up with that. But again, things that they have not gotten before, those are the things that we're trying to solve, right? So among all the big projects, right, understanding that Tobagonians, and that's why I said the Tobago perspective is extremely important.
Right.
When you come out from your home, because in going to school, I remember putting on boots and walking out the road to go to school. So being uncomfortable in your own space, right? Comfort. That is what we're looking at. Even we have the community care package program right now for low-income households and persons that have non-communicable diseases, right? We're in a partnership with the Division of Health. So we monitor and you get all those fresh produce from Tobago, and they try to train you on how to eat properly, right? So that you manage whatever, disease or non-communicable disease that you're battling with. So we're trying to make a healthier community. So even if you have a low income in your home, that you don't gravitate to more of the things that would make you unhealthy because you don't have the resources to purchase fresh food, right? So we are getting along. It's all about actually caring about people, right? And I believe that, I've been visible all the time. I've been consistent, which is most important. And that is why maybe I'm relaxed, because I know that I've been showing that I didn't now jump up and say I'm going and do something.
Right.
I've been consistent all throughout as a secretary and at the community level.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for, giving us some insight into how this administration plans to, execute particular agricultural products or projects that should be the foundation for anchoring that economic growth for Tobago. And guys, we want to thank you so much for being a part of this morning's discussions. Thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments, and all that you have been doing and continue to do to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, I am Shenell Felix, and have a great day.
The energy fill the sky.